All right, let's look at the polynomial that we were trying to factor in class, which is this one here. I've included the graph that we had, and it looked like there were two zeros. There was one here, another was here. I'm going to mark this one as, I think we decided that this was 2. So 2 is a 0, and we concluded that, well, x minus 2 is a factor. And it'd be nice if we knew what this other 0 was, because we could really easily factor this equation, but I was having a hard time guessing. Plus, I figured there would be a third one, I just can't see where it's located. So like, what's going on here? What I'm going to do is divide x minus 2 into this polynomial using polynomial division. That is, I have x minus 2 being divided into x cubed minus 2x squared minus 5x plus 10. So to start with, I want to cancel this x cubed, and I see I have an x here. This means I have to multiply by x squared. When I do, x squared times x is x cubed, so that's perfect. But then, x squared times negative 2 gives me negative 2x squared. If I take the difference of these two things, I actually get 0. And this means I can skip over my next place value. So I'll put plus 0x here and simply bring down the next two terms, which is negative 5x plus 10. My goal is to now try to cancel this negative 5x. I'm going to multiply x minus 2 by negative 5. When I do that, I have negative 5 times x is negative 5x. And then negative 5 times negative 2 is positive 10. And my difference, after I subtract them, gives me a remainder of 0 since they are identical. What all this work means is that we took this equation, we factored out x minus 2, so I'll put x minus 2, but what was left over is going to be this part here. I'm not going to include the 0x, I'm just going to put x squared and then minus 5. So this is kind of like our first step. I couldn't guess all the zeros, so I went through this process, and at least I was able to factor out x minus 2, and then x squared minus 5 was left over. If I could somehow break this apart into two pieces, I'll have answered the problem. So by that I mean, I can't break apart x minus 2, but I'm guessing I can somehow factor apart x squared minus 5. Like, okay, it's got to be, an x and an x. I know I have to have a positive and a negative, and we're left deciding, okay, are there two numbers that multiply to negative 5, yet when I add them, I get 0x. And why this was hard to guess is that the answer is the square root of 5. The method that we used in class to guess what the zeros were equal to, it was either an integer or a fraction. We never got something that had a square root in it, so it's possible that you could miss these. But if you look at the square root of 5 times negative the square root of 5, definitely that equals negative 5. Furthermore, if you add those two things together, it would give you 0x, the term that we actually didn't write down. So this is how the equation factors. It was x minus 2 times x plus the square root of 5 times x minus the square root of 5. Now to address that last part of the problem where it only looked like on the original graph there was a 0 here and there was 1 here. Like if you looked at this spot, it definitely looked like it was at x is equal to 2, and then there was this spot over here, and well, it turns out that this thing was negative the square root of 5, a number that's a little less than negative 2. So where is the third 0? And the answer is, if you zoom in right here on the graph, that's the picture that I put over here. So I just took this equation and I zoomed in very carefully on this location. And here's what I see on my picture. I mean, it is for sure true that 2 is a 0. But it was very deceiving, because just a little bit past that is the square root of 5. So there are actually 3 zeros that were in the picture, it's just that we were zoomed too far away to see all 3 of them. So in retrospect, okay, there was 2, there was negative the square root of 5, but just a little bit past 2 was positive the square root of 5. Those were the 3 numbers that were zeros of our graph, which I'll mark down here. The zeros were negative the square root of 5, 2, and then positive the square root of 5.